World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And considering I'm a big fan of kaiju flicks, and Shin Godzilla is probably the highest profile one we've had in decades, and you keep asking me to review it, hey, it's time for a review of Shin Godzilla. The English dub, because this is another movie that was oh such a joy to try to rip. The subtitles probably show up fine in the Blu-ray player, but my ripping software couldn't figure out what the hell it was doing. Either way, what language it's in is hardly important. The real meat of the story is Godzilla besieging Japan and destroying everything in its path. For the first time ever. Yes, this is a reboot of the franchise, but it's also the first time that they've ever had an actual Toho-made reboot that doesn't have the first movie stay as canon. The stuff in 1954 never happened. This is mankind's first experience with Godzilla. This means it's the first true full reboot, I guess you could say. How would mankind respond to the threat of Godzilla in the year 2016? Mostly by tweeting about it, but the creature's very existence threatens the lives and, more importantly, the economy of Japan. Thus, they have to do everything they can to save the country from the very real threat of Daikaiju. And on that note...
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, looking for you, Scooby. Hello, Decker.
Creepy!
Yeah, what do you want?
Well, that's harsh. Do you think I always call you just because I want something from you?
Either that, or you've called to brag about how many subscribers you have again.
Yeah, that's great and all, but anyway, I was going to review Shin Godzilla today, and I'm wondering if you would like to help.
You mean you were wondering if I'd script the whole thing and you collect the ad revenue?
Well, of course it sounds bad if you put it that way.
How do you not make that sound bad?
Call it surprise internship. Hello? Well, let's take a look at Shin Godzilla, alone, and see if the king of the monsters still reigns supreme. Our story opens up to the waters just off the shore of Hanada, where it appears a mysterious vessel, the Glory Maru, is adrift, and this requires investigation.
In the meantime, we're going aboard. We're now on board.
Geez, it sounds like me trying to give commentary on a Let's Play. The mystery only deepens from what clues they do find. A few notes, an origami bird, and absolutely no signs of any incident in the abandoned vessel. That is up until the ocean explodes and the region is rocked by unspeakable horrors. So from this, we can already tell that the monster is an enormous Quentin Tarantino. Obviously, the Aqualanes being compromised and the whole water go boom thing doesn't go unnoticed, and the government is hot on the case. The important one for us to follow being Rando Yaguchi here, played by Hiroki Hasegawa, also voiced in the English dub by Todd Haberkorn, who you might know as Death the Kid's voice from the English dub of Soul Eater.
Was it an earthquake that caused the flooding?
We're awaiting the seismic readings.
Could it be related to that strange sea eruption?
We don't know that, not yet at least.
It's very easy to tell though, because not only is it the same voice actor, it's the same voice. Like, exactly the same voice. Questioning the cause of the disaster is a bit premature at this point, as it turns out that it's still ongoing. The ocean is churning with boiling heat, and an evacuation of the surrounding area has been ordered, which the people will get to eventually. Gotta tweet this shit out first.
Watch your head. Cool slide. Stay calm.
Yeah, I'll get to safety, but first let me take a selfie. By the time the Prime Minister, Seiji Okochi, arrives, played by Red Osugi, some questionable internet videos have surfaced suggesting that it might not be your average underwater volcano they're dealing with, but a giant monster. However, nobody gives those crazy ideas much thought but Rando here.
There's some footage of it online.
That's absurd. People probably just saw a big whale spouting.
The sea is boiling. No living creature could survive those temperatures.
Tardigrade! Also, real quick, the advisor here, Ruta Azuma, played by Akira Imoto, was dubbed by Ed Blaylock, aka Führer King Bradley from the Full Metal Alchemist dub.
I suggest holding a cabinet meeting immediately. Prime Minister?
Yes. Good idea.
In that case, let's move to the main conference room.
Who likely won't be reprising his role in the live-action Full Metal Alchemist movie because, well, he kind of passed away. And it's really not a good idea to try and reverse that through transmutation. On a more pleasant topic, the politicians figure out what will be the best course of action for dealing with this minor disaster, rebuilding and relief efforts and all that, and of course investigating what exactly caused the problem in the first place.
I must reiterate, the presence of a large marine creature as a possible cause.
Yaguchi, this is a serious matter, not some joke.
But sir, this hypothetical monster, I fear there is a real and dangerous possibility that it lacks symmetry.
This is a ministerial meeting, after all. Don't make a mockery of it.
Well, that's great and all, but the big giant monster tail flopping around in the ocean has something to say about your thermal vent theory. The appearance of the fucking-enormous tail swinging around the ocean makes its way into the national news very quickly, validating Yaguchi's concerns over the giant monster internet videos. Realizing their plans to deal with the nasty thermal vent problem are completely fucking stupid, the politicians return to the Prime Minister's office to brainstorm over what exactly Japan is supposed to do about giant damn monsters coming out of the ocean.
We can do nothing and just let it go, or capture it, try to exterminate it, or possibly even attempt to chase it off.
There's also the possibility that we will be invaded by aliens who will stop the giant monsters, but the giant monster will then be instrumental in stopping the aliens who, as it turns out, were the real threat all along. Of course, we could also sit back and just watch as the creature teaches the children the importance of recycling. Most of them want to just kill the thing, but it's politics, so of course you have to take into account the concerns of environmentalist groups, and those who aren't too happy with the idea of using heavy weapons in commercial areas, potentially wreaking economic havoc while trying to either kill or wrangle the creature. They have to decide fast, though, as the beast is on the move, but don't worry, this is a kaiju film, so they very quickly gather together some scientists to advise them on the situation.
3 experts have arrived. I suggest we go consult with them right now.
It was like that awkward moment where you have no idea what to say because you've already decided as soon as you sit down that there will not be a second date. While calling up the most renowned scientists in the land always worked on kaiju flicks before, this time they do as much as you'd expect the top names in their field to do. Nothing! They refuse to weigh in on some unknown creature or speculate anything, concerned that doing so could damage their fine reputations.
Those experts were useless. Get me some people who know something.
On it, sir.
And don't come back until you've scoured the deepest reaches of Reddit! They don't have to go that far, as one person has a suggestion. A college friend of his, Hiromi Oshigama, a low-ranking member of the Environment Ministry, played by Mikako Ichikawa, who also played Natsuko Aki in the Cutie Honey live-action film, and the character is dubbed over in English by Kate Oxley.
Can it come on land?
Yes, it's a possibility.
Who you might also recognize from the dub of Soul Eater playing Erica Frog. I should really see about doing professional voice acting for dubs. It seems to be a great way to get yourself into abso-fucking-lutely everything. The politicians don't quite trust her judgment on the monster coming on the land, though, because the other science types believe that the fin-like feet of it would be crushed under its own weight should it ever try. So the Prime Minister addresses the public, giving a basic outline for recovery efforts, and assuring the masses there's nothing to worry about. It can't come ashore.
That will be all. Sir, sorry to interrupt.
What? It has?
That's what you get for trusting the optimistic scientists over the nerd who hasn't bathed in a week. Thus, the people run for their lives from... Derpzilla. Well, this is the creature that rose from the depths. Enormous, destructive, a little wide-eyed, and spraying blood everywhere out of its gills. This changes the public message from, don't worry, to get the fuck out of there right now! The chat on the inside also changes from how to fix the bridges the most economically to how fast they can mobilize the self-defense forces to exterminate the monster.
Article 76 says in an armed attack, self-defense troops are allowed to use force.
But this doesn't qualify as an armed attack.
But they're all politicians, so somehow giant fucking monster destroying your city takes a backseat to semantics arguments. After enough back and forth about what their options are, if they should attack the thing or wait for the US to help, or if the US can even help without them first taking action against the beast, plus the risk of a collateral damage if they do or don't attack, the Prime Minister finally makes the decision to mobilize the self-defense forces and attempt to take it down.
This makes it Japan's first military action since World War II, and when asked for justification, the Prime Minister referenced the terminology in Article 76.
He then pointed out the window and said, "Giant fucking monster destroying the country!" Oh, but this isn't even his final form. Yaguchi points out that he's evolving, like a Pokemon, but considerably less flashy and far more disturbing. Ah well, just means it's even easier to aim at the thing, and the self-defense force prepares to unload with all they've got. But darn it, a couple civilians just so happen to be in the area, so cancel that. Wouldn't want to cause collateral damage now. Well, at least the two guys on the road survived. Maybe. Fortunately, this was merely the monster's destruction on the way out, giving the country the chance to assess the damage and realize just how fucked the country is if they can't come up with a proper strategy for dealing with such a creature. As the beast returned to the sea for now, they upped the defenses around the areas they believe it might come ashore in the near future. But the defenses aren't exactly split up based on the probability of attack.
In regards to the other regions, at least in terms of the GNP, they make up 17% of the total. Kanto, on the other hand, it makes up a whopping 40% of it.
Politics and economics. You really can't fault this movie for not taking into account the real-world ramifications of a giant monster attack. At least they decided to ramp up their one winning strategy. Weird Pale Girl with no emotions was the best at predicting the capabilities of the creature, so Japan gathered up as many freaks, geeks, and figure mozukus as they can to brainstorm and figure out as much about what this thing might be capable of. Along with its behavior and stench, the question of how such a massive creature could even metabolize comes up, considering there's not enough oxygen in the atmosphere to fuel something that size.
Maybe the answer is nuclear fission.
Either that or he busted into the 5-hour energy factory. Or would monster be more fitting? Her suspicions are proven quite quickly when they find out that the beast left radiation in its wake. Safe levels, but it's certainly a nuclear-powered monstrosity. Also, it's time to introduce a new character, an assistant deputy chief to the President of the United States of America, who just so happens to be an attractive woman of Japanese descent, Kayoko Ann Patterson, played by Satomi Ishihara and English dubbed over by Trina Nishimura, despite the fact that she spends a lot of the movie speaking English.
Keep this up bilateral, okay? Just US-Japan. So, win-win.
Which is also one of the hardest parts about working on this movie, according to the actress. And then we just dubbed over her lines anyway. Sumimasen? It turns out the US is trying to find a scientist, Gorumaki, who just so happens to be the guy missing from the boat in the opening. Fortunately, despite saying, "Found him, we can't find him," she still holds up her end of the bargain, handing over documentation the Americans have on the creature they're facing.
Godzilla?
That's right. It's the DOE's code name. Godzilla.
So, the Americans named it Godzilla, or at least the DOA named it Godzilla, after getting Goro's research notes on the creature. At the very least, that beats Steve Martin mishearing someone clearly saying Gojira. Then again, Goro also clearly wrote Gojira on the research notes anyway, so who knows at this point.
Gojira means God incarnate.
Oh, that or gorilla whale. Seems to note Goro had also revealed Godzilla's origin. 60 years ago, radioactive waste was dumped haphazardly into the ocean because what could possibly go wrong? Well, a creature not dying from it but mutating and eventually feeding on the radioactive waste directly certainly ranks high on that list. Not only that, but it is continuing to mutate.
It can somehow mutate itself to live both on land and sea. I have to admit its capabilities far surpass anything I could ever imagine.
Ever heard of turtles? It's a rather popular one in the kaiju genre. It can fly, too. Not out of the question as they muse that Godzilla might sprout wings, but that's neither here nor there. The last clue the missing doctor left is this chart thing. Lots of lines and labels, but good fucking luck figuring out what it means or what it's a key to just yet. They do figure out that Godzilla returning to Tokyo Bay was to cool its radioactive body down. This means it likely has its own liquid cooling system in the form of its bloodstream.
Then not only would we need to force Gojira to shut off its internal reactor to stay alive, but also find a way to cool its blood down, and so much so that we can immobilize the creature.
Some say there's a plot hole here because someone mused that they were going to overheat the creature by messing with its natural cooling system, when they actually freeze the creature by messing with its natural cooling system, which only makes sense if you only pay attention to part of their plan and not all of it. I should know, I've got experience on that. They figure a coagulant might do the trick, but it's obviously going to be far more complicated than that. Don't have time to iron out all the kinks just yet, as Godzilla returns. Along with the classic music from the original movie. It's amazing how well that works for both nostalgia and fitting in with the theme and sounding just fucking awesome. And we get our lovely scenes of Godzilla finally looking like Godzilla, tearing through Japan, causing untold destruction in its wake. Or maybe told. I don't know, they cover the economic impact of kaiju attacks very heavily in this movie. Also, while Godzilla is CGI, interestingly enough, they designed it to look more like a suit than a real animal, which strangely enough makes it look a hell of a lot more like Godzilla. Also, now that the area is clear of civilians, the self-defense forces can let loose and open fire on the monster.
asked for, ineffective!
But gosh darn it, the Army only managed to establish how invulnerable the creature is to military attacks. How could we have seen that coming? They're not quite convinced, though, so they throw everything they have at Godzilla. Missiles, tank shells, artillery fire, and motherfucking drone strikes from hell! However, despite the everything but kitchen sink strategy, Godzilla is completely unscathed and continues its destructive march inland, heading for Tokyo. Because, well, that's what giant monsters do. It also doesn't help Japan that Toho loves some good old one-upsmanship, and this Godzilla also just so happens to be taller than the legendary picture's Godzilla. Pretty soon that motherfucker's gonna have his own gravitational pull. But you know what's even bigger? America! Fuck yeah! The US is here to destroy Godzilla just like they did in 1998 and bomb the motherfucker!
MOP-2 bombs have struck the target. Direct hit! It's confirmed bleeding.
Okay, just from that shot, I'm starting to wonder if we can somehow work Shin Godzilla into a future Mortal Kombat game. While they did get him to bleed, there is a little detail that might make America slightly less capable when it comes to killing the beast. Turns out Godzilla's not one of half-assed things when you ask for everything deep-fried. His breath attack upgrades from radioactive flammable gas to straight-up fires of hell and eventually into his trademark beam of fuck you and everything you ever loved. Not only that, when the Americans attempt another bombing run, Godzilla bursts beams from his back to blow the bombs in mid-bombardment. This does end okay, though. I mean, Japan's engulfed in nuclear flame, the Prime Minister's helicopter was blown to shit, and all the attempts to stop the creature fucking failed, but it spent a lot of energy and goes into sleep mode to recover for a while. Life goes on, though, and we gotta keep the politics moving, so the agricultural minister is given the job of Prime Minister, whether he likes it or not. Also, if you're wondering why they don't just try to kill Godzilla while it's sleeping...
This is from the GSDF's latest unmanned surveillance system.
Just as I thought. It appears that Godzilla has something like a built-in phased array radar.
That's like the first time a movie has tried to legitimately, scientifically explain the existence of its plot armor. There is one option, though. America has oh so kindly offered to drop a motherfucking nuke on Tokyo, which will probably take out Godzilla. Yeah, Tokyo will also be destroyed, but it's cool. A coalition of nations will help rebuild Japan afterwards, so economically, it's the best choice they have.
If we can't put a stop to this soon, the nation will go into default on all of its loans. For that reason, Japan needs international funding in order to survive.
It does feel strange to have a giant monster movie where they care this much about the economy, but in the long run, it kind of works. I mean, think about it. They've actually successfully evacuated almost everybody from these places, and the body count has been relatively low compared to the destruction going on. However, the economy matters, and if this motherfucker knocks over Tokyo Tower, you have to replace that, and that shit's expensive, and if he keeps this kind of shit up, Japan will become a third world nation. There are real ramifications for this wanton destruction without there having to be a high body count. It's impressive. Japan's disaster team isn't exactly on board with the new Prime Minister's decision to just hand the situation over to the UN to destroy Japan in order to save Japan, and feels the blood coagulant strategy can work. So much so, they mobilize chemical trucks from all over the nation to get as much as they can, even though without understanding the physiology of Godzilla completely, it's just a guess as to how they need to calibrate the stuff in order for it to work. However, it turns out the answer to the riddle was right under their noses all along. The ancient Japanese power of origami.
When the schematics folded, it's a molecular chart for converting elements in the body. Gojira's body has molecules that can do this, and the proof of this is in the unknown radioactive isotope.
Lost Scientist holds the key to saving mankind from a giant monster the likes of which the world has never seen, arbitrarily hides said key behind bullshit puzzle, just to fuck with them. Only in Japan. Using the chart to unlock the secrets of Godzilla, and running a few simulated molecular tests through a supercomputer or two, the team discovers the blood coagulant plan may actually work. Thus, they demand to be allowed to at least try. Fortunately, while Patterson is their connection to the American president, she's Japanese enough to have a real emotional investment to not wanting America to drop any more fucking nukes on Japan. Kind of a sore spot, you know? The president lets her know she may be putting her future political career, including a run for president herself, at risk with this maneuver, but she pushes and gets the green light to let Japan try to take care of this problem their damn selves. Now for Rando Yaguchi to invigorate the team with a rousing motivational speech.
Operation Yashiori will be dangerous! The risk of radiation exposure could result in both sickness and death. I cannot promise that all of you will make it back.
Oh, fuck this. I was just trying to get a little overtime pay. Thus, the operation is underway. First things first, they have to get Godzilla to use up all his nuclear power. So, utilizing drones from the American friend, they bomb the shit out of him, forcing him to blast nuclear beams out of every frickin' orifice.
How the hell can it do that?
It's a kaiju flick. You gotta have the monster pull new abilities out of its ass for the climax. Look on the bright side, you got awesome tail lasers. What'd Gamera get? Frickin' spike in his elbow. The plan works though, and Godzilla blows so much energy out his lasers run out of power. Thus they engage Phase 2, blow up their own damn city, and crush the monster under some buildings. This just to stun the creature and get it prone, so they can get in the final phase, stick a bunch of coagulant pumps into its mouth, which somehow means into its bloodstream, and pump that bitch full till it can't take no more.
Crane Platoon 1. They're gone.
Oh, you have no idea how many times I wish I could have done that at the dentist. That's right, Godzilla was down, but not out. He's back to rampaging through the city, and they just do the same thing again, knocking his ass over so they can send the rest of the trucks and the coagulant over to pump his ass full. Or his mouth, his bloodstream, whatever.
Didn't work.
And the moral of the story is, even with all the research coming through and the plan going exactly as well as you could have hoped, you still can't fucking win against Godzilla. Psych! That was just Godzilla doing the classic scare before the end. His blood freezes just as well, and the humans have won. Therefore, happy ending! Japan is saved. And they did it all by themselves! I mean, America helped a little, but the point is they didn't have to nuke Tokyo. In fact, they got a spiffy new frozen Godzilla, whose radioactive isotope's half-life is only 20 days, making it very hot, but very short-lived, meaning the area will be plenty inhabitable very soon. All in all, everything is looking great for a bright and prosperous future for Japan. Unless, of course, you take into account the army of fucking xeno-zombies coming out of the big guy's tail. Might get a sequel out of that. Anyway, that was Shin Godzilla. It's very talky, but very good. I'm sure enough Godzilla movies have been released theatrically in the States by now that the complaint, "Yeah, it was nice, but where was Godzilla?" finally sounds as dumb as it really is. Godzilla doesn't have a huge amount of screen time in most Godzilla movies. That's how they are, and the human characters are really what hold them together. Here, the human characters were a bunch of politicians. Yay. As boring as that sounds, though, surprisingly the film held it together very well, and even made it exciting. While a huge chunk of the film was spent watching people talk to each other in meetings, the quick cuts, quick talking, and smart use of music helped keep the movie feeling tense. Hell, they talked about specific codes of law like you'd expect anime characters to go over what trading cards counter what super moves. The movie never felt boring because it never was boring. Even before they knew they were dealing with a motherfucking Godzilla, the government was scrambling to deal with emergency services and evacuations at breakneck speed. When it came to the spectacle of destruction then, oh holy fuck was it good looking! The detailed destruction of the buildings and the super high quality effects on display finally got me to question if what I was looking at was actually CGI. According to my research, yes, all of it. They had a guy in the suit they filmed for some bits, but didn't use any of that footage because that didn't look as good. As crazy as it sounds, I believe him. Unfortunately, there are a few areas I feel the movie suffered. One, it's long. Like 2 hours. But when you have that much talking for that long, it's hard to keep excitement going. We learn things about the characters during the downtime, but we're not dealing with suffering families or incredibly stupid kids that run towards giant monsters but are somehow endearing by the end of the flick. We're watching politicians talk politics. The lulls are less engaging as a result. Also, while there was a threat of nuked Tokyo looming overhead, the climax felt kind of simple. Hard to have a massive spectacle without Godzilla fighting another monster, and the climax did have a spectacle, just after such a build-up, I think this movie needed a bigger payoff. Overall, Shin Godzilla is a fantastic watch, well worth the time for any kaiju fan. Its slower nature towards the end and overall length, though, might keep many people from wanting to re-watch it so often, though. Coming in at 4 back lasers blasting death and destruction in every direction out of 5. It's certainly got better visuals and far better writing than Godzilla Final Wars, but I mean, come on, that one had motherfucking chainsaw hands! Thank you all for watching, I've been Shado, and remember, tardigrades. They're tough motherfuckers.
It can somehow mutate itself to live both on land and sea. I have to admit its capabilities far surpass anything I could ever imagine.